Terus, nak welcome Tuan Vadis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon to everyone. Yang menghormat Tuan Lim Mani, Chief Minister of Penang, Dr. Afif Hadin, Moderator of the day, Yang menghormat Zahir Johari, Executive Director of Penang Institute, Dr. Lim Kim Kwok, CEO Penang Institute, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to the Penang government and the Penang Institute for this invitation to speak in Penang, something that I have not done for quite a long time. Certainly, I have not spoken to such a big crowd, and I think the big crowd of today is because they are interested in where Malaysia is going. Who wants? Kemanakah arah tuju Malaysia? Where are we going? That is the question in everyone's mind today in Malaysia. Where are we going? We are very confused at this moment. But I think if you want to know where we are going, we have to know where we come from. If you don't know where you come from, you may think you are going ahead, but in fact, you are going backwards. At this moment, we cannot be sure whether we are going ahead or backwards because of the things that are happening in Malaysia today. Now, where did we come from? Well, we were a British colony, in fact, for a long time. Kedah was only a British colony for about 50 years. And at that time, we felt that we should be ruling our own country. I will not give the details of the struggle. But when we sought independence, most people say that this country will be reduced to shambles if it becomes independent. And the reason for that is because this country has a multiracial population. And at that time, the only citizens, most of the citizens of Malaysia were only the rakyat of the Sultan. So the suggestion was, from within the country and also from outside, is that since the Malays would be in the majority and would rule the country, then they would seize the property or nationalize the property of the non-Malays. That was what most people said at that time, including the British. And the British were so concerned about this that they insisted that we give a commitment that we will not do anything to people who are non-indigenous to the country. So the future looked very bleak for Malaysia at that time. If we become independent, there's bound to be riots and conflicts, and the whole country would be destroyed. Certainly, it was not expected to grow. In all multiracial countries, there would be conflicts between the people of different races. And if within them there are disparities, this would be pointing towards conflicts even more. But as you know, this country, upon becoming independent, remained stable and grew by leaps and bounds if you compare with many other countries which became independent together with us. Of course, this was the period after the Second World War, when most of the empires were broken up and many other members were given their freedom. In Asia, in Africa, and in many other places, independence was what everybody wanted. And they believed that with independence, they would be better off. So when they see Malaysia attempting to become independent, they concluded that this is going to result in conflicts between the different races, and the country will go to the dogs, so to speak. But as we all know, the conflicts there were, but it didn't result in instability, in a broken peace, and it in fact became a country that outshone many of the other countries which became independent together with us. And the reason for this was due to the first Prime Minister, Ucaptama. He was wise enough that he could formulate a way of preventing conflicts between the races. His idea was that we should share this country between the different races in this country. We should share the wealth. We should share the political power in this country. So, because of this idea of sharing and the willingness to accept more non-Malays as citizens, this country achieved peace and stability. No one can deny that. Look at the countries which became independent together with us. Where are they now? There are conflicts. Even people of the same race, ethnically the same, but because they were of different tribes or different religions, they fight each other. They became unstable, and therefore they couldn't grow. But here in Malaysia, the people were so different that it is unthinkable at that time that they could live together at peace. We have the Malays who are Muslims with their own language, their own culture, and their own achievements. Then we have the Chinese with Chinese language. In fact, they used to speak many different dialects at that time. And they were of different religion, different culture, etc. And so it is also with the Indians. We are so very different. In every way we were different. Even in the terms of location of these people. The Malays were in the rural areas, planting paddy or catching fish. The Chinese were in the cities and towns, and the Indians were in the estates. They don't even live together. So how could Malaysia become a stable country? How could it develop and grow? But the fact remains that despite this diversity, we have managed to live together. We have attained a certain degree of stability and peace, and we have developed. We have developed so much that we became ambitious and wanted to become a developed country. That is something that we must always remember. That was where we came from. a country divided into different states, into different communities, has actually become united, formed a federation, and the people were given citizenship, and they elected their own leaders because we adopted a democratic system. The essence of democracy is the right to choose your own leaders. That is the essence. Well, there are other things, of course, today which are associated with democracy, like men marrying men, and women marrying women, and all that. That is something else. But the essence of democracy is that if you don't like a leader, you can overthrow him, merely by casting vote. And we have done this before. The leader of UMNO, the founder of UMNO, was Dato' Jafar. He should have been the first Prime Minister of Malaysia, but he didn't, because he brought along a proposal that was not acceptable to UMNO, and he decided he would resign and form another party. Nothing happened. He has his right to resign. He has the right to form another party, and UMNO had the right to carry on with a new leader. And that was Ucaptama, fortunately. So overthrowing leaders is not something new in Malaysia. Of course, it's very common all over the world. All over the world, they overthrow leaders. Of course, the more violent ones actually assassinate their leaders. We are not like that. We don't like killing, we don't like to assassinate anyone. But there were times when we had to overthrow leaders. You know, even Ucaptama, in a way, retreated because he felt that people no longer wanted him. Nothing happened. No shooting, no assassination. He went away, and the country carried on with the democratic system. And many other aspirants, people who wanted to become Prime Minister, and they failed by the workings of the democratic process. So now we know where we were and how we had progressed. And we find that every leader that we elected to run the government, they seem to be focused on the development of the country. Yes, of course, we have our differences. Of course, the opposition did not agree. They didn't agree with me, that's fine. I felt that I need somebody to tell me that I was wrong, because otherwise I would think that I was doing everything right. So in a democracy, the opposition has a role. The government has a role. If you don't have the opposition, you don't have a mirror to look at how ugly you are. That's what the opposition is all about. Sometimes the opposition may become very personal. You can sit together, you can talk together. But at the base of it, there is this desire to see that this country develops and gives a good life to the people, whether they be opposition or the government. Of course, the opposition have got their own ideas. The government also have got its own ideas. But it didn't come to the point where we need to have a revolution, where we need to go violently and overthrow the government, despite the fact that people like me was not very well liked by Kishan and Sana and the like. But I would like to assure them that I listen to what they say. And if I had to reject them, I rejected them. If I thought that they were any good, I plagiarized. and make it my own. But what is a fact is that despite our minimal knowledge about democracy and its working, we did manage to run this country and have elections, and we behave ourselves in the Dewan where we have debates and all that. Always remember that in some countries they fight. They actually fight each other in the Dewan. And in one case, they brought some dirty things and poured it over the heads of the government. But in Malaysia, we are nasty sometimes, but not so nasty that we cannot, debate and find answers to our problems. So for me, having the opposition is a good thing. Of course, I need to have two-thirds majority. But I didn't use money to get two-thirds majority. I may use other things, but not that. You see, when you believe that you can become popular through giving people money, then you'll find that the people will demand more and more money in order to support you. Of course, we have some money. As a Prime Minister, I was paid a very high salary, beginning at $8,000 a month in 1981, mounting to $20,000 a month. And you know that in the private sector, they pay as much as, I know one person in the private sector who earned $180,000 a month, more than $2 million ringgit a year. But prime ministers were paid 30,000. I think that's a lot of money. I will tell you that I didn't spend the money at all. I don't have to spend. The house is provided by the government, electricity and water is paid by the government, all the transport is given by the government, and for makan, except for breakfast. People invite me all the time. See, I don't have to spend money on makan. If I come to Penang, I can go for nasi kandaya. Somebody pays, I don't pay. I have saved, and that is what I am doing now. I am spending my savings rearing cows, buffaloes, and horses in Ucaptama. Please come and see them, they are there. But the pay of a Prime Minister is not enough to buy something, not enough. So when you want to use money to become popular, you need more money, but you don't have enough money. So what do? You steal. That's what we do. You see, when Najib was made Prime Minister, I was so happy. I celebrated. I went to see him. I returned to UMNO, and I had great hopes that this son of a previous Prime Minister who dedicated his life to this country must be like his father. He must devote his career to growing the country, to finishing the work or extending the work of his father. That was what I thought. And I worked hard to get him to be the Prime Minister. I'm afraid that Abdullah is not like me because I worked for Najib. And when he became Prime Minister, I was so happy and I thought, well, he may ask me some advice on things and all that. But I found that he wasn't interested in my advice. You know, you feel frustrated because you've been in power for so long, we have done something, and you know a few things, you think that a little bit of consultation with you might be served as a guide for a new Prime Minister. But I was not called. The first time I met was after, well, I raised the problem of the crooked bridge, the railway line, and all those things that we have agreed upon and were not carried out. So I ask you, why are you not doing this? You promised. Yes, your predecessor did not, but you are not bound by what your predecessor decided. Why don't you build the bridge? He told me that there is an agreement with Singapore that the bridge cannot be built unless Singapore agrees. You cannot touch even one brick from the causeway because there is an agreement with Singapore that you cannot change the causeway without both parties agree. So I asked a simple question, can you show me the agreement? Until now he has not shown me. He lied to me. He lied to me. There was no such agreement. I want to know. For 22 years, I spent my time trying to have good relations with Singapore and I failed. I could have built the bridge, but Singapore doesn't want. So I said, let's build a crooked bridge. It's a great tourist attraction. But you know that Singapore doesn't want to build, and then the Sri Najib also didn't want to build. But there were other things. But instead of doing what the people wanted him to do, he decided that he could buy their support. He conceived this idea of bringing bantuan rakyat. I said, no, this is not the right way. You serve the people, you do what the people want you to do. Create more jobs for people so that they can earn a good living. But he thought it's not necessary. You give $500 a year and they will support you. And in the 13th general election, you know, he did not do as well as his predecessor. He actually failed. As head of Selangor division of UMNO, he couldn't regain UMNO. So it's quite clear, I think, that giving money to people is not going to make you popular. What will make you popular is the creation of jobs, the training of people so that they can fill in the jobs and get good pay for their skills. That's what the people wanted. He thought that, well, of course, besides green, he also gave a lot of money to whoever complained about anything, give money. They come to see him complain about their constituency, give money. Anything at all, give money. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So when I told him that it doesn't work, he got very annoyed with me. For 6 months, he never talked to me. And then, of course, the Prime Minister, the Chief Minister of Pahang, Menteri Besar Pahang, asked me, have you been advising Najib? I said, no, he doesn't talk to me. So he noticed that actually that was the case. And he told Najib that please talk to him. Because this man is responsible for 2 prime ministers retiring. So it's better to be nice to him. After that, it was nice. But nice only up to a point. When it comes to giving dream, he thinks that if you give more money, therefore they will support you. I tell him it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that way. And when you give money to people and they don't support you, you think that you give more money to people therefore they will support you. So then there arises this need to have money to give people. Not 100, 200, not 1,000, 2,000, or even 10,000, 20,000, but million. You give a member of parliament, I'm no member of parliament, $1 million. He couldn't speak. He just stared at the money. That's right. And you know, Shahrir, member of parliament for Johor Bahru, admitted that he received 1 billion ringgit from Najib. And when asked, why do you ask it from Najib? Who else? If I need money, I ask my president. And Muhammad Mazlan, he has 2 billion ringgit. And I'm quite sure many of the other members of parliament and division heads of UMNO have received money from him. And the result is that they are not performing their duty. They know what Najib has done is wrong. Having money in his account is wrong. But they continue to support him. They continue to support him. And he, for his part, made sure that there will be no avenue for anyone to get rid of him. Now, one of the ways of removing a prime minister is through a vote of non-confidence. Now, a vote of non-confidence will only work if you have a majority. The opposition is the opposition because they don't have the majority. To have the majority in parliament for a vote of non-confidence, you need members of the government. But members of the government are not going to make any sacrifice in order to overthrow Najib. They know, they must know, everybody knows that Najib has not been very honest about money. But they will support him. So we cannot remove Najib through a vote of non-confidence. Although somebody said they can get the numbers, but they couldn't get the numbers. Now the other way of getting rid of a prime minister is to make a police report that he has stolen money. And the police report was made by Dato' Khairuddin. He was brave enough. He came and told me that he wants to do this. I said, you really want to do it? You know what will happen to you? But he wanted to, and he made a police report that Najib has basically stolen money. So what happened? Nothing happened. Instead, Khairuddin is called up by the police and questioned. And of course, Khairuddin, not knowing the law very well, decided to have a lawyer to help him. And the lawyer he chose happened to be my ex-political secretary, Matthias Chap. So this lawyer was helping Khairuddin to answer questions by the police. And the police now ask questions of the lawyer and accuse him of being a terrorist, of trying to sabotage the economy and the banking system of this country. You can't imagine that these two people suddenly out of the blue can become like terrorists and sabotage the nation. It's nonsense. But that did not prevent them from charging these two people, detaining them in jail, and accusing them of being terrorists under SOSMA. This is another law. They got rid of the ISA, and everybody, including the opposition, felt very happy. Here is a great man. He's got rid of the ISA. Not like his predecessor, like Martin. He kept the ISA. But what happened is that he has two successors to the ISA. One is SOSMA, the other one is this new law, the security something of which is worse than ISA. Because under this new law, which has been passed by Parliament and by the Senate, it gives the Prime Minister power, which was before only with the Young Dipertuan Agong. Before to declare an emergency, the Young Dipertuan Agong must sign the declaration and say there is an emergency and we suspend the operation of the laws and we can arrest just about anybody and throw them into jail. But that means having to ask the Agong to sign. But under this new law, the security law, Najib does not have to ask the Agong at all. As Prime Minister, he can declare this area a security area and he can then arrest people without trial and throw them in for God knows how long. So he can stolen the power of the Agong. Fortunately, the Agong has not signed this thing. But of course, in our system, if the Agong does not sign, and if Parliament ratifies the law within 2 months after it is ratified, then the law becomes effective. But so far, he has not gone back to Parliament to ask for the law to be ratified. But he has this idea that he should replace the Agong. His Royal Highness Najib. His ambition has no bounds. He wants to do everything and have the power to do everything without question. It is because of this idea that he should have absolute power that he came up with the idea of one MDB. I must admit, I accepted, I did not support it, but I accepted this idea that the government should have money to invest for the future. But he calls it sovereign wealth. It is not sovereign wealth. Sovereign wealth is an excess fund that you have that you don't know what to do with, and you can then buy some hotels or whatever in other countries for the future. But this is money that is borrowed. It's not wealth. It's there. The Agong will come up with him later. But he calls it sovereign wealth. But okay, if you're going to do real business, very quickly we find that it was not business that he was doing. He wanted this money, big sums of money, so that it can somehow or other flow into his kitty, his account. That's what he wanted to do. So the government had to stand guarantee for his borrowing of 42 billion ringgit. 42 billion ringgit. The government never borrowed even 1 billion ringgit. I remember when I was Prime Minister, we never borrowed 1 billion ringgit. We borrowed some from the Japanese. The Japanese had so much money that they offered to us loans at 0.7% repayable over 40 years. You'd be an idiot not to borrow. But Najib borrowed money at 5.9% interest. That is very big. Government never paid anything more than 3%, but he was paying 5.9%. And on the top of that, he doesn't get all the money that he borrows. He gets only 90% of the money he borrows. 10% goes to Goldman Sachs. But he has to pay interest on 100%. He gets only. I thought this is crazy. I mean, this is going to cost any business that you do become very expensive because you have to serve the loans, you have to pay the interest, and eventually you have to pay the principal. It's not the way to borrow money for the government. Other people can borrow and pay even 20%, but the government is entitled to very low interest rate. But Najib paid 5.9% for 90% of the loan that he borrowed, which means that actually the rate went up to almost 7%. It is crazy. But why does he want to borrow this money? Oh, to invest. And when you go through, I wouldn't talk about what he invested in, but what we do know is that the money disappears. Somehow or other, it's like a magician. One day you have 42 million, the next day, it's disappeared. We ask, oh, it is there, it is here, it is there. I said, but show proof. Money, that much money, cannot be hidden under the pillow. You can't sleep, because the pillow will be the big money like that must be kept in the bank. And once you go to the bank, there must be documents. You don't give 42 billion to the bank and just walk off without any receipt. There must be a receipt. The bank must enter this thing into their books. They must update. They must charge interest or whatever. So money cannot move without documentation. Show us your document. No documents. Even when the auditors ask for the documents, no document. So if no document, how can we know where the money is? It's in Singapore. Why in Singapore? Because Bank Negara asked too many pensions. You are the Prime Minister. Bank Negara is a part of the institutions in the government. Surely they are not going to question you if you are doing legitimate work. But he is afraid to bring back the money to Malaysia because Bank Negara would ask questions. Which means, of course, he knows he's been doing something wrong. But later we find that there's money in his kitty, in his account. 861 million US dollars, translated into 2.6 billion ringgit in the Prime Minister's private account. Secret, because it's not told to anybody except the bankers. I mean, a Prime Minister should never at any one time have that kind of money. If you have that money, it is like you building a house, a big house. You have to ask questions. And maybe now they ask you question of money. How much? Only a few billion. But this is 4.2 billion ringgit. No questions asked. There's something wrong. First we have the police report made. Nothing is done. The people who made the report goes to jail. Now you have these huge sums of money in his private account and nobody asks or says anything. I think Bank Negara knows about this money. We now are afraid of money laundering, of stolen money being bersih. Not through bersih, but bersih. You have to clean the money. And to clean it, you must explain where the money comes from. I think Bank Negara knows where the money comes from. Because Bank Negara prepared a report for the AG. But the AG says there is no evidence against Najib. Of course, this is the new AG. The old AG has been So how can we progress? How can we rely on anything when we find that legitimate, or the legality of his money is not being investigated? It should have been investigated. 2.6 billion ringgit, that's a lot of money. I tried to work out how big is it. I think it may feel about a quarter of this room. I mean, that kind of money, of course, is not in the form of cash. It is in the forms of documents, checks and things like that. So, show us, where is the check? Who gave you? This man, this Arab, who gave you so much money. Even these Microsoft people won't give that kind of money. Bill Gates won't give that kind of money. But this Arab is so concerned about Malaysia. More concerned than me or Vadis or anybody else. He's so concerned. He wants the UMNO to win. And he gave this huge sum of money, 861 million US dollars. And tells Najib, please spend it and don't tell anybody. As a Muslim, you should know that the injunction is that when you give to charity, you don't ask to tell people, don't tell people that you have given to charity. Maybe he was abiding by that injunction. I don't think so. Now, if he admits that it comes from this Arab, tell us which Arab, so that we can meet this Arab and ask him, hey, how do you get so much money to give away? Show some document. What business are you doing? You must have more than that now in your bank. That's what the investigation should be all about. But the MACC couldn't find the error, couldn't ask the question. But on the other hand, of course, sometimes the CEO says he has seen the money. The money is not in cash. Nobody keeps money in cash. When he says he has seen, and then the bank says, no, the money is not with him. He said, no, money is units. What units? Nothing is explained. So documentary evidence is not there. All that happens is that Najib says, I did not misuse the money. I didn't use the money for myself. The money that I spent for my own daughter's wedding, that is deferred. Although I question it. I think when my children got married, nobody knows about it. Because I didn't spend that money. I keep the money for myself. But here, a huge wedding, maybe a little bit of that money which is meant for UMNO, whatever has been spent on himself. Not to say about the purchases of Hermes bag. You know Hermes bag, it costs about $100,000 each. And Rosma has got about 11 or 12. All kinds of expenditure, all kinds of spending is known to people, including the ring that cost 25 million ringgit. Just one ring, 25 million ringgit. So, there are lots and lots of questions that has not been answered. But what we do know is that we cannot do anything to remove this man because you report to the police, you land up in jail, you have to move a motion of non-confidence, he has already spiked that because all these UMNO members of parliament have been basically bought by. So without that vote, without the police report, what do we do? We are at our wit's end. trying to find how do we get rid of this man. And we came up with the idea of a deklarasi rakyat, the citizens' declaration. Many would say, well, even if you had that, there's nothing in the constitution which says that he must step down because of the citizens want him to step down. Nothing in the constitution. But I would like to say this, that when we were struggling against the Malaysian Union, the rulers had already signed the McMahon Treaty, giving their states to the British. They had already signed it. But the people, the citizens of that time, felt that it was wrong to sign that McMahon Treaty. And they protested. They protested to the rulers and told the rulers to reject the agreement they had signed and not to attend the celebration of the installation of the governor or high commissioner of Malaysian Union. And the rulers did not attend. So the voices of the people, when the rulers hear the voices of the people, they were prepared to do things which otherwise they would not do. That is why I believe that the voice of the people is the only way we can have united India. So we have launched this campaign for people to sign and give their IC number. The more you sign, the more safe you are. Our jails and our detention centers are very big. But they can't accommodate 10 million people. They can't accommodate 1 million people. That is why there is safety in numbers. We are asking we are appealing to you to take this small risk. Just sign your name, give your name, and give your IC number. That's all. You are not asked to stick out your neck to be chopped off. No. That I do myself. I stick out my neck. But you will have to. But if you sign this declaration, there is some hope, some possibility that we can persuade the rulers to act in certain ways that will regain the power of magic. I will not tell you how it can be done, but believe me, when the citizens speak, the rulers will have to listen. That is why we are going all over the country, meeting people, and I'm glad to say that people responded. I'm told that today's gathering is about the biggest you ever had, which means that the people want to do something. It is for your own good. Because if this money that is borrowed is not redeemed in some way, it is going to be paid by you and your children and your grandchildren. No way you can immediately do away with this debt. It is a burden on the government. The government has guaranteed this loan. And when the government guarantees this loan, it means that the people will have to pay. You will have to pay. Your children will have to pay. And maybe your grandchildren will have to pay for something that has brought nothing good to our country. To spend money on some projects is fine. To spend money building roads and railways, etc., at least we can use them. But this 40 billion ringgit, what have you gained from it? Nothing. Yes, he bought the power plants, but the power plants were there, and we were enjoying the power generated by the power plants. When he bought it, we don't get any richer, And now he sold it at lower than the price he bought. We lose money, and we still have to pay tax. He bought land in Kuala Lumpur, land that neighboring that piece of land, the PRX land. Land there has been sold at 7,000 ringgit per square foot. 7,000 ringgit per square foot. And he, as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, must have been instrumental in fixing the price at 60 ringgit per square foot. 60 ringgit for land that is worth 7,000 ringgit. And on the top of that, he's now selling the land in Ucaptama package. The pilgrims fund, which is meant for the pilgrims to perform the fifth pillar of Islam, to do the Hajj. He took that money and bought land that he bought for $60, and Tamu Haji has to pay $3,500. That is cheating. That is, what do you call it, overpricing things. That is what he is doing. We are already paying the money for his loan. And about the rest of the money, where are they? You don't know. But I was briefed by some people, by Tony Paul. He's done a great job on it. He actually read that PEC report, long report. I tried to read it, I get bored and go to sleep. But he has read, and the money has been shuffling around from one company to another, from one country to another, from British Virgin Island to Cayman to Seychelles to Hong Kong to Singapore. The money has been moving around. But where are they being deposited? They form companies. They form companies, false companies, which have the same name as the real company. You see, for example, there is this money due to be paid to Aba Limited, one of the subsidiaries of IPIC. This is Abu Dhabi Fund. But the Aba that they paid money to is not this Aba, but this is a shadow company that is set up, and they paid to these people. So these people didn't receive the money. The real people didn't receive the money. But this false company received the money. Then there's another company called Blackstone. Now Blackstone is the name of a famous company in America. They use the word Blackstone in their company so that they can transfer and no questions will be asked. So where is the money? Nobody knows. This is the work of Najib bin Abdul Razak. I am shocked. This is the son of a man I admire, and he is capable of doing this. I don't know what the UMNO members of parliament think, but I think they have, in Malay they say, Udada. Dada is, I don't know what, when you remove the paddy husk, you have this leftover in powdery form, and that is the name for money now. We can't say money, we say dada. When you shove it into the mouth, you can't speak. When you shove it into the ears, you can't hear. When you shove it into the eyes, you can't see. So all these UMNO members of parliament and division head have had their mouth, ears and eyes full of this powder. So they can speak now. So we must be the people, we the citizens of this country, irrespective of whether you are from the opposition or from the government, from the different races or whatever. Now we have to forget our differences and we have to come together to remove this man. This man is a danger to this country. All Vadis, Malaysia, where with Malaysia, where are you going? It depends upon us. If you don't sign, then we'll go down. That's all Vadis. That's where we are going. But if you sign, there is hope that we can remove this man. And I believe that without him, it is possible for us to recover in some way or other. So I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to talk on an issue that affects every citizen, irrespective of race or color or religion or party. This involves all of us. If we don't do something about this, we will have to bear the burden. We will have to pay, our children will have to pay, our grandchildren will have to pay. So I appeal to you to sign this declaration. So little to do, but the effect is so much. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.